Okay, good evening. Welcome to the February 10th Palmer Town Council meeting. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is visitors' comments. For items not on the agenda, I would ask that if you're going to come forward, you please give your name and your address. Anyone like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Bob Habelis. I live at 1071 Pine Street. I do have a question only because, and I just want to wait till I get their attention.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I have a question before I start.
Oh, okay.
My comments aren't specific to what your discussion is, but it's related. I'm going to be talking about the Palmer Ambulance Service. Is that okay? It's not. It's an agenda item, but I'm not talking about your details.
You're talking about?
Essentially, the reason why I'm here tonight, and I want to thank the counselors and town manager, I just want to give clarity to who the Palmer Ambulance Service really is.
Okay,
that
go
we're
ahead.
not a town entity. I just
Okay.
want to explain a little history, if I might.
Okay, go ahead.
And so anyhow, I'm the board of directors. I'm vice chairman of the board, and I'm representing them this evening. Primarily it is I want to give clarity to who the Palmer Ambulance Service is. We're a private entity. We're a nonprofit, an IRS 501c3 entity. We've existed for 40 years, and just really want to provide some history of what we're about. Some highlights. The discussions for the ambulance service began in 1982. The town of Palmer Select Board established an ambulance study committee. The ambulance study committee decides to base the service on a volunteer all-call basis. This really became spearheaded at that time by Earl Benoit and Richard Bonnier. In 1984, service provided 911, utilizing mostly volunteer on-call from home and paid per call personnel on the BLS level. 1992, the service upgraded to advanced intermediate level of care, remaining mostly on call. Fast forward 14 years. 2006, 2007, on-call volume increased in such a way that it made no sense financially to continue as an on-call basis. It really meant we'd be more economical to go to a full-time, full FTE employment type of service. In 2009, the service's capacity expanded to 4 ambulances. In 2010, the service leadership identified that the pattern increased enough with the opiate-related overdoses occurring within the community. By 2012, the Palmer Ambulance Service implemented a pilot's pre-hospital Narcan naloxone program, the only ambulance service in the state with the basic EMTs delivering Narcan, successfully saving hundreds of lives in the process. 2011, the service leadership developed and implemented one of the Commonwealth's first continuous quality assurance improvement programs for licensed ambulance services. In 2015, the service capacity expanded to 5 ambulances. 3 were typically staffed and running on any given day. And the reason why we had 5 was if one went out of service, we wanted to make sure we always had a replacement to be able to provide the same level of care every day. 2012, the leadership identified the need for increased level of service, and we completed an upgrade to the paramedic level services by 2013. 2013, the Massachusetts Office of Emergency Services utilized Palmer Ambulance's Narcan pilot program data to implement a statewide ambulance protocol to ensure appropriate Narcan administration to all ambulance patients in the Commonwealth suffering from overdose. In 2013 and 2014, the Palmer Ambulance partners with the local high schools to implement an internship program, successfully mentoring almost 24 high school students with career focus in healthcare over the life of the program. And that had continued for the last few years, and some of our best EMTs came from Palmer High School or area high schools that went through the program. In 2014, through several service-identified implemented initiatives, Palmer Ambulances receives a Heart-Safe Community designation for the town of Palmer, ensuring high-quality EMS, ALS paramedic level care. access to AEDs, and demonstrating community involvement in CPR, severe bleeding care. 2016, Baystate Health acquires Wing Hospital from UMass Memorial Healthcare, and that will become significant. 2019 to 2020, COVID, which we all really wish to not remember, the pandemic begins. The Palmer Ambulance Service leadership collaborates with the Palmer Board of Health to address the pre-hospital needs. While Palmer Ambulance Service operations are obviously impacted, the town of Palmer sees no impact to the overall delivery of EMS services. Our story begins to change now. September of 2020, Baystate Health decides that its agreement with the AMR to provide routine ambulance transports out of its campuses also applies to Baystate Wing. As a result, Palmer Ambulance sees a drastic reduction in call volume as a result of the Baystate Health decision. 2021, Palmer Ambulance partners with the town of Palmer Board of Health, serving as chief medical officer to operate the town's pop-up COVID vaccination clinic. Palmer Ambulance coordinates and supplies the staffing to the vaccination clinic. Palmer's clinic serves as a state model. Once again, we're leading the way within the state from EMS. Palmer's clinic serves as a state model to how clinics should be run and function. An interesting fact, from a community standpoint, in 2022 and beyond, Palmer Ambulance Service collaborates with the local fire departments to train and in-service local firefighters to act as EMS first responders to the community. What is important in numbers? More calls, meaning runs or transports, more revenue. Less runs, transports, less revenue. Pretty straightforward from a dollar and cents standpoint. A business performer needs to provide all of the expenses to maintain the level of service, compliance and regulations, equipment, maintenance, replacement, staffing, and their training, facilities, and general operations. All of that and more has a cost, and that cost needs to be covered. It's about your demographics, know your demographics, and how that affects your numbers. The important fact about runs, I just mentioned why runs and transports relate to bottom line. Our run history, 2016, 2017, we had around 2,600 transports. 2018, 2019, we had 3,600 transports. We're on a growth. 2019, 2020, 4,042 transports. These numbers, 10 on either side of that, maybe the actual number. It peaked in 2020. Now, going back to that statement where I said, Baystate Health Systems, owner of Baystate Wing Hospital, contracted with AMR, the global company American Medical Response, with 37,000 employees. In 2021, our transports, Palmer Ambulance in the first year suffered a decrease by 1,866 runs. Less runs, less revenue. 21 and 22, Palmer Ambulance suffered a decrease of another 473 runs from what we had already lost. Less runs, less revenue. 2022, 23, Palmer Ambulance saw an increase, slight increase, 124 runs. This was still significantly lower than what it takes to be sustainable, particularly when the entire revenue in preceding decades had been supported by call volumes. Palmer Ambulance shouldered that deficit. 2023, 2024. Palmer Ambulance hit an all-time low call volume with only 1,597 transports. Calls from Wing Hospital were non-existent. AMR would not call upon Palmer Ambulance Service even though there were patients waiting in the ER or on the floor to be transferred, and the Palmer Ambulance Service could have been there in minutes. Palmer Ambulance attempted to have discussions with the Baystate Wing Hospital, but to no avail. Another year of financial loss for Palmer Ambulance, despite the many efforts to juggle schedules and staffing and to try to maximize availability and response to calls. The Palmer Ambulance management provided many scenarios over the recent years to try and sustain the operations, but the numbers continued to go in the wrong direction. Throughout 2023 and clearly 2024, Palmer Ambulance Service was hearing that the Palmer Fire Department District 1 was forming their own ambulance service. It was initially conveyed as only a backup, but was publicly noted in a meeting that they wanted to become the primary ambulance service in town. So how did the infamous 7-day notice come about? I'm referring to the 7-day notice is that when we informed town manager that we had decided not to continue and renew our license. The Palmer Ambulance Board of Directors had many discussions over the past couple of years regarding the continuing erosion and reduction in number of transports and the negative impact on our revenues. Back to my earlier comments. Less volume, less revenue. It wasn't changing for the better. Suddenly and very ironically, Palmer Ambulance was now the patient. We were hemorrhaging rather profusely. And unlike any person who gets an infusion, there was no infusion coming to the Palmer Ambulance to sustain our vitals. We needed to stop the bleeding. Coincidentally, on November 1st was our license renewal of 2024. In October of 2024, it was decided that the Palmer Ambulance Service could no longer afford to incur financial losses associated with solely providing 911 services to the town of Palmer. The Board of Directors felt that due to continually rising operating expenses, years of steady decline in call volume from primary historic resources, namely Bay State Wing Hospital, staffing challenges, competing medical transport services, increased regulatory compliance demands, our original mission to provide EMS service at no cost to the town could no longer be sustained. And I do emphasize, no cost to the town. Additionally, the creation of a municipal tax-based Palmer Fire Department District Number 1 ambulance service was licensed and in operation, which would provide ambulance to the Palmer community, would reduce our call volume over time. That's great, promise. In summary, the Palmer Ambulance served Palmer at no cost to the town of Palmer, nor to its residents in most instances. Over the course of 40 years, Palmer Ambulance has saved Palmer conservatively $25 to $35 million. That's no joke. I don't mean to really use that in that way, but that was serious money that we've saved because the town has not had to provide any money toward this. We were self-sustaining. Palmer Ambulance has always put professionalism, compassion, and care for the people that they serve first. Palmer Ambulance has provided signature programs recognized by the state. We did make attempts following the announcement on a couple of occasions to call for a joint meeting with all the fire departments and the town manager to discuss what might be the best options going forward, but unfortunately that did not come to fruition. We understand that there is an immediate gap to fill, and that the longer-term solution is not immediately known. We are still open to discussions to consider what might be the best solution for the town of Palmer going forward. As a nonprofit, we also have decisions to make as to the dissolution or restructuring or converting the Palmer Ambulance service into another entity that might be a municipally owned separate EMS service. There are protocols that need to be followed, and our time is not infinite. We have offered the expertise of our senior management to assist the town manager in his evaluation of proposals, as there are many nuances when providing emergency medical services, which Palmer Ambulance has 40-plus years of experience and knowledge. If there was not another active ambulance service in the town at the time, our approach would certainly have been different. It's all in the numbers and your demographics, and I can't repeat enough. Understand the demographics of your town. The followed reimbursements on an invoice, particularly for Medicare or Medicaid patients, may be about 20 to 25% of what is invoiced. That's your revenue, not the billed amount. Bottom line is what we want to see a sustainable community. Bottom line is we want to see a sustainable community-based service. I thank you very much for, I know it was lengthy, but for all those who are here, for those who may be watching, we thought it was important that they all understand that Palmer Ambulance Service was not a town entity. We apologize, Mr. Town Manager, for having to take the calls for those thinking that it was, and for our decision. But as a Board of Director members, we have fiduciary duties to understand and maintain the sustainability of which we are the stewards of. And again, we still aim to serve the community in some way. We're here. We want to have those discussions, but hopefully we can have them relatively soon as we have decisions to make. And I do have a copy of, not necessarily everything here, but all the highlights. I do have a copy for each one of you, so I can hand those out.
Is it okay if we ask questions? No?
No.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
So again, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Bonnie Rathbone. I live at 20 Brown Street in Palmer. Just a couple of things I have. I happened to go over a friend's house the other day, and she said to me, Bonnie, did you get your water bill? And I said, for Palmer, downtown Palmer, Palmer Water District number 1. I said, well, I got the envelope, but I didn't open it. I know the bill's not due until the end of the month. So she said, you didn't see the letter that was in the bill? So I'm kind of here to say to people, open up your water bill and read the letter, because there was evidently a problem with the filtration system. And it says important information about your drinking water, and evidently there was a problem with turbidity, which is cloudiness, at Graves Brook water treatment plant, and hopefully there's no problems. But it said, what should I do? There's nothing you need to do. You do not need to boil your water or take other action. But it says if you have a severely compromised immune system, have an infant, are pregnant, or are elderly, you may be at increased risk and should seek advice from your healthcare providers about drinking this water. And then it also said that please share this information with all the other people who drink this water, especially those who may not have received this notice directly, for example, people in apartments, nursing homes, schools, and businesses. You can do this by posting this notice in a public place. So I just hope that everyone reads this information. I asked Bobby Havlis, who's my neighbor, when I came in, did you get the letter? And he said no, because he didn't open.
I don't know. I don't get all the, I don't
Right.
see all the mail, so
But I'm just saying.
The household might have got it.
Yeah, so this is just an FYI, if you have any questions about it, especially if you have any compromising conditions. And also, there is a board meeting of the Board of Water Commissioners on Wednesday, February 12th at 10 a.m. at the Fire Department Annex, and that's behind the Fire Department. So I just thought people should know about this, in case any of you get any calls about it.
Right. Yes, so I'm not a member, I don't have town water.
Right.
So, but just to be clear, that is people who get water from the
On
Palmer
the Water
Water
Department,
District.
yes,
Could you go make a copy of that, just so Brad has it?
right here. You can have this, I've got another copy at home. You do? Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then the other thing, could we put out a reminder to residents to please shovel their sidewalks? There are so many people who walk around downtown Palmer. There are people who don't have any transportation. They walk to CVS, they walk to Walgreens, and there are those people who just don't shovel their sidewalks. Could we put out a reminder about that? And also about no on-street parking. I mean, there's a car parked on North Main Street near Paramount Pizza it's encased in snow because it's right on the road and the plow drivers have to go around it. So if we could just put out a notice about that, it's frustrating for all of us. And also I'd like to thank the Palmer DPW for the excellent job they do in plowing the roads in this town. And they see that for those people who do shovel their sidewalks, they make sure that the snow isn't piled down their sidewalks. So thank you for the DPW and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing no one, next is minutes from January 13th. Is there any comments or questions on those? Do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion.
Motion by Matt, second by Carl. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I abstain. I was not here. Okay, under old business, we have a vote on loan authorization 2025-1, which is for $2,720,000, which is for the wastewater treatment plant UV improvements. Do you have a motion to approve?
I'll
Make a motion.
Motion by Mark, second by Matt. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. We have a vote on loan authorization 2025-2 for $273,500. This is an amendment to loan authorization 2022-02, which is the wastewater treatment plant dewatering improvements. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Jess, second by Carl. Discussion?
Yeah, what's the extra additional cost? It was for the original appropriation that went out. It did include the design, I believe, and that we had paid that, and now we need to recoup that money. So there's already a dollar amount approved for it. This just represents the design money behind it.
Sure.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, new business. So under new business, we are striking A and K. Okay? So we have a Conservation Commission appointment. Brad,
Yeah, is Courtney available?
here,
Yes.
I'm guessing that's it.
Courtney, do you want to come up and talk real quick just about your background? So as you guys know, there a vacancy became available in the for the Conservation Commission. So that's why you see the appointment date is running through 6/30 of '27. Courtney put in for it, and I feel she's a great fit for the position. I'd love for her to give you a little bit of background about her. So Courtney, the floor is
Hi.
yours.
Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Guidry, and I'm looking to fill the vacancy for the Conservation Commission position. A little bit about me. I'm a new resident to Palmer. I moved here in April of last year. So largely, I want to learn a little bit about my new town and my new home. Before that, I lived in Texas. I worked as a geospatial analyst for the city of Austin, specifically the Watershed Protection Department. I moved here as soon as I got a job offer for a GIS administrator position for the town of West Springfield full-time. So a little bit about my background in general, highlighting that. Environmental geosciences, education and background from Texas A&M University, work in watershed science and analytics, specifically floodplain science, hydrology, some of the topical focuses of my background. And I thank you for your time and consideration for my interest, and if you have any questions for me, then let me know.
Sounds like you have a great background for the position. It's great.
Excellent.
Okay, so I have a motion to appoint Courtney, how did you say your last name, I'm sorry?
Oh, it's Guidry.
Guidry,
Thank you.
to the Conservation Commission with a term ending June 30th, 2027. Motion by Carl, second by Matt. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, welcome aboard. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congrats. Welcome to Palmer.
Okay, next we have the appointment of a standing personnel subcommittee pursuant to Section 2-10B of the Town Charter.
Yeah, this was one of the ones that we unfortunately missed when we went through our original budget subcommittees. I shouldn't say budget subcommittees, our subcommittees in general, that we now need to add on. And it'll be standard practice that we appoint a committee every year going forward.
Under the charter, there is actually a standing subcommittee that needs to be appointed of council members. So we should have been doing this all along as part of our annual subcommittee appointments. So what I'm going to recommend is that instead of putting people in the position, we do it as positions so that the standing committee every year would be the president, the vice president, and the clerk, as opposed to people, individual names.
Wait, you lost me. What does this subcommittee do?
So under that section of the charter, section 2-10B,
Yep.
that committee, a standing committee must be set up of council members.
To do what?
It's a personnel subcommittee.
It's regarding personnel matters.
For who?
It's
town
outlined.
employees?
It's outlined in the charter.
Yes.
Okay. No, I'm just curious. I've been a counselor for 9 years and never heard of that subcommittee, so
Right,
I'm just like,
Yeah,
that's something
this-
new.
This will be the first time, and I think that in the interest of just going forward, just for consistency, if it's always those three positions, then whoever changes, so if something happens over the course of the year, because we usually appoint the council subcommittees once a year. So let's say I step down, whoever became the president, like it could be off-cycle, it would be president, vice president, and clerk, and that would just be
So
automatic.
just make the officers that
It would just
subcommittee.
make the officers and as opposed to people.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, so can I have a motion to appoint the president, vice president, and clerk to the council, the standing committee for
Second motion.
personnel? Motion by Matt.
Second.
By
I'll second.
Jessica. All in favor?
Aye.
But
Okay.
who does this go over, the whole town wide?
No, it's outlined in the charter. You'll see these specific positions that are outlined by that standing committee.
Or who?
It's,
We'll have to look at it.
it's the police chief, the DPW director, and I want to say the municipal finance officer.
Heads of the department.
Correct.
type thing. Thank you.
Okay, and then further, I'm going to make a motion. I move that any matters within the standing committee's scope as defined in the town charter be directed to the standing committee without first coming before the town council. So we go to the standing committee, and then the decision of the standing committee would then be brought to the whole council, as opposed to it going council, standing committee, council.
How is it outlined in the charter?
This was the recommendation of how we should do it,
From legal?
yes.
Sounds good. Make a motion.
So I made the motion, Matt seconds. Discussion, all in favor?
Hi.
I wasn't gonna argue with that. I
Opposed?
mean, I already did the research, so.
Okay. So you can have that back. Okay. Next, we have Resolution 2025-44, which is a vote to authorize $168.18 be transferred from free cash to pay prior year animal control facility bills. And these are this is a water bill that was not forwarded to the town.
Correct. The bill was being sent to the town of Munson. As you guys know, we acquired that property, I think, in 22, 23, somewhere in that timeframe. And unfortunately, the bill address did not get changed to the town of Palmer, so the invoice was going to Munson, and it was not being forwarded on to us. So this is just a back bill. They've now made the correction, but we technically owe this back bill.
And because it's a bill from a previous fiscal year, it has to come before the council to authorize payment. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Jess, second by Carl. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No
Abstentions?
discussion on that one?
Oh, did you want discussion for $168?
Just quick question. We share resources, so I don't understand why they just couldn't pay the $168.
Because we control the funding. Correct?
They pay us, right? Okay.
They contribute, yes, but ultimately that water bill is then distributed between the 4 communities
Got it. Okay.
that are part of the Milltown.
Got it.
So, did we vote?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, Matt.
Nope, that's all right.
Okay, next we have Resolution 2025-45, which is a vote to authorize $16,014 from free cash to pay prior fiscal year Maya deductible invoices.
So same thing, we have quite a few different My Deductibles that remained unpaid for a few different reasons, but the biggest one is when a claim is created, that unfortunately billing takes a little bit of time. So some of these cases, and again, they're personnel matters, so I can't share this with you, but some things take time, and there's actually one from 2019 that finally just closed out that we're getting the final closeout for. So we need to do a better job, I think, too, of really, once we have a claim, make sure that we really probably encumber the deductible amount. That way doesn't come to a surprise of us, and then we can close it out once the case is closed, and that money will go to free cash. So that way we don't have to keep coming back to you guys for unpaid bills. Even though it's not unpaid, it just is, it came in after the fact.
So these are against the school and the town, so can't we share some of this with the school?
That needs to be a conversation in going forward. So currently, the funding for all of these has always been on the town's side. That we need to have that discussion on. It's tough for us to track anything ongoing the school has. That realistically, I do think a piece of this does belong to the school department.
But it's an unpaid bill at this point,
Correct,
and
it
it needs to
doesn't-
get
yeah.
paid, so it doesn't, they don't have a budget mechanism to pay an unpaid bill.
Yeah.
So
Whether
free
it's
cash
me or
is the mechanism.
whether it was me or the school coming forward, it had to be approved the same way.
Any other questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I don't know. Did we? Motion?
Make a motion?
Jess? Matt? Try again. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Did I tell you I was having a bad day today? All right. All right, next is a vote to accept clerk fees. Sue here, or? Oh, yeah, she's here.
These are the updated ones, Barbara? To the full hearing.
There's one revision that we reduced the full hearing on.
Okay. Go ahead, Sue.
So I just was asking the council to make a revision in the fees in the office. It's been well over 10 years. And like everything, the cost to do business is going up and up. And I researched the, towns that with our kind of the same amount of population, and I figured this is right in order, and I'd like to have it commence on March 1st.
Do you want to just, for the record, just indicate the ones that are changing, maybe the from and to?
So currently, for a birth record, if you're under 18, it was 5, and now it's going to go to 15. So all vital records will be 15, birth, marriage, and death. And business certificates will remain the same at 60. Dog licensing, if your dog is not neutered or spayed, it would go to 20. So it would be 10 and 20. And burial permits would go from 10 to 20. And then kennel fees would go up accordingly to the number of dogs.
I mean, it looks like all the fees that she's requesting are still very reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell us?
If you received your census form, if you could please return it, they're not coming back at all. And then the dog license fees, I mean, if you approve this and it passes, then they'll be going up again. And other than that, we're just,
Yeah, I'll just add that on real quickly, is the due date for the dog license is the end of February. So technically, we're gonna keep the price as is outlined, and that's why it'd be like we're charging someone to be late like we would anyway, come March 1st, so it doesn't really impact how we do business.
See, I planned that, Sue, as you said it. Okay. All righty. Do the motion to approve the fees as listed? Motion by Matt, second by Carl. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the fiscal '26 preliminary budget overview. Gabriella Potter, our town accountant, and the town manager.
All right, do a fire
We're
order.
not talking
sure.
about
What did I skip policies?
Yeah, we did. You wanna go over policies
Oh,
real quick?
sorry. Vote to accept, I told you. Vote to accept financial policies.
So at the original, I shouldn't say original, our initial January meeting, we presented to the council our proposed policies. There have been 2 minor changes we're requesting, and I'll highlight those quickly. The 2 changes are adding in language that says nothing precludes expenditures of less than $15,000 from being included in the capital improvement plan if deemed appropriate by the town manager. As you guys know, most of our capital items usually have a $15,000 value and life usefulness of beyond 5 years. But when we're going through our budget process, what I found is there's a lot of one-time needs and wants from departments that don't fit that. So they have been putting into their operating budget requests, and what it does is it creates fluctuations in our operating budgets that really aren't true. So the thought process is, rather than have a $10,000 swing on a minor line item budget, if we remove that, this gives me the ability to add that into the capital plan, and it keeps our operating budget, it keeps the variances out of that. Doesn't mean it's always gonna happen that way. It's up to the discretion and the recommendation of the town manager, but I do feel like for the size of some of our department budgets, this just makes a lot of sense. And a few other local municipalities have this language in their financial policies as well. The second change is debt service guidelines. Excuse me. If the original language I proposed to you guys was to set that between 5 and 10%, ideally that's where I'd love to be. But when we looked at the numbers of where we stand right now with our debt service, we were right around the 2% mark of our operating budget. So what would have, if we had voted this as is with the 5 to 10, would have happened is we would have had to move money from availability from operating budgets right into debt service, and we would have been cutting all of our operating budgets by, I think it was like $1.2 million. So it wouldn't have been fair to make that move in 1 year, because we've been slashing staff, we've been slashing departmental budgets that, again, it's not the direction we want to go in. So this now gives us the ability to state our floor is 2%. We have the ability to go up to 10%, but ideally the goal would be to increment that up to get it in the 5% range. Again, the thought process on that was, again, just to avoid not following our financial policies, right? If we're gonna adopt something, we need to be able to say that we either it fits right now with our needs, or we're not breaking it, right? We're not gonna adopt something that we can't follow.
Okay, any questions? So the policies were given at the last meeting, correct?
Correct.
So hopefully everyone had a chance to review them. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the financial policies
Just wanna
with
make a
those
quick
amendments?
comment on this. We've been talking about this for 5+ years now. And I just want to say thank you for pushing it over the finish line, because it's been a long time coming that we've been, working on these, and there's been a couple iterations where we were like, not even close, and we tossed it out. So, good job, both of you guys, for
Yeah, no, I
for
appreciate
making
it.
this happen, yeah.
No, it feels good for us. This is one thing I know when I started on day one, this was a priority for the council, and it's off my whiteboard, so I'll take it.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Give it to her.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay, now we'll go to the fiscal '26 budget.
All right, so we're gonna give you guys a very, very quick summary of the preliminary operating budget where it stands as of today. There's still a lot of work to do, to go through the process, but I do feel it's important to show where we are as of today, and it's not, be fully transparent with everyone, it's not a pretty picture, and there's a lot of work to do to move from that. So one of the common themes I got for questions when we got when the last tax bills went out is, where is my money going, right? That's a common theme we get, and we definitely will do a better job of showing through different pie graphs and charts really where taxpayer money is going. But for the sake of just general revenues and how they feed into the operating budget, if you look, Gabrielle, can you read the percentages for me, just because I can't?
56 for the tax levy, 36 for state aid, and 8% for local receipts.
Got it, thank you. So again, just to reiterate that, 56% of our tax levy goes to feed the town's budgets. We rely on 36% of state aid, and then the 8% of local receipts. So again, if there's any questions as we go through, feel free to stop me, but this is just a high level today.
So this slide, it has a little bit more detail on the categories that Brad just talked about, with a little bit of history. So you can see for revenues for fiscal '26, our estimate, we use the prior year levy limit, plus the 2.5%, the estimated new growth, debt exclusion. That's going to be our tax levy, and then we use the local receipts and the state aid. So
And there's
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
You can see in the new growth category, there is fiscal '25 has a large number there. This is a very unusual, and this is due to the assessor hiring a new vendor for inspections, so they picked up a lot of new revenue, especially on the personal property side.
And now that's accounted for as we build our FY25. We caught it initially in FY25. Now it's built into our base when we start FY26.
So these are just a few examples of the local receipts. These are the major drivers of the local receipts. Just so everyone knows, the detailed list will be posted on the town website. Like I said, these are just the major categories.
That's, those numbers are as of the end of the year, or?
This is what we're estimating for fiscal '26.
Okay.
So we had
Based-
we had a
based-
budget subcommittee meeting last week. We reviewed all of our revenue projections, and we looked at like the trend history on there. And we'll produce that document so everyone has access to it. But it goes over everything we take in for local receipts, and you can see the history on it from prior fiscal years for actuals. So it gives a good side-by-side comparison to track where we are. But I know just from, I wanted to highlight a few on here of the common questions that we receive on a should say daily basis, like the cannabis excise tax, right? That was only $40,000 in fiscal year '25. Now we have enough data to recommend a higher amount, so we're putting in the budget $110,000 for revenue. you'll have all this detail that again we'll put online.
With actuals?
It'll be all projections for FY '25. It'll have actuals full. This is probably your 3 fiscal years going on in my head. It'll be projected for fiscal year '26. It'll be adopted budget for '25 because again we're in that,
Right.
and '24 prior will all be actuals.
Okay. Right, because we're not out of 25.
Correct. Exactly. Yep.
Got it.
But I would just throw this out too. So even though we now have 4 cannabis stores, is it 5?
Three.
Three.
Okay, 3.
Three
Oh, yeah,
operating,
one-
one, right. 4 licenses, 3
Okay, 4,
operating.
okay. So that revenue, you can't necessarily budget, you can't, even though there's a store that may open, you can't budget for something that doesn't exist at the moment.
Correct.
So, you know, in fiscal '25, that revenue was really low because of what we knew at that point in time. And now that number will grow, will continue to grow slightly.
Yep. All right, and this is probably the most important slide we're gonna go over because it really tells the picture of where we are for FY '26. So when Gabrielle went over that chart, we had all of our tax levy, we had state aid, and we had local receipts. When you look at the new money that's coming into the town, that represents the $1.9 million number at the top. Okay, so before we even go any further, we have to take off our fixed cost expenses that again are locked in, that we have really no control on to some extent. So from the 1.9, health insurance, I got the number from our broker, came in at 16.2%. What that represents to the budget is $900,000. Okay, so again, right off the bat, before we even talk about salaries, we talk about adding on staffing, we are minusing from our available 1.9 million, $900,000. From there, we have Hampden County Retirement Board. We put in 11%. I have seen other municipalities come in at 15 plus. We don't have that hard number yet, but we put in there what I felt was hopefully a good buffer. Hopefully it comes in lower. But 11% increase represents $308,000. Again, right off the top from that 1.9 that's available before we even talk about available money for for all departments. General insurance, same thing. It was 15% is the recommendation. It may drop a little bit, but again, that's $105,000 right off the bat. And then transfers, which is cherry sheet assessments. The big driver on that is our charter school assessments. That increase every year. That again is money that we don't see from that 1.9 million. So I guess the biggest takeaway I want everyone to know is before we even talk about staffing, before we talk about increasing the school's budgets, the town budgets, adding on staffing where the request may be, we only have $500,000 from a $1.9 million of new money. So I just think that's very important to highlight to the board, or just the council, because this paints the picture of where we're going to be for FY '26. So there's any questions on that? Again, this tells an unfortunate story, but this is going to be, all municipalities are going to be in the same boat because health insurance numbers are coming in anywhere from 13 to one municipality I heard was 18%. So this is not going to be an anomaly for Palmer. This is going to be a common theme you see throughout for all municipalities.
I thought the Healy administration just announced they were increasing all of the charter and all that stuff aid to the towns.
So we did, but when the chapter 70 funds are incorporated into that new revenues. So that includes all the new chapter 70 money. Even though they increase money going, this is the thing with charter schools, right? You increase what you give, but you also increase the expense side. So it always pretty much nets as a negative loss to the municipality.
Got it.
That is all incorporated in that slide. This is a one catch-all. We did find a few different things that will slightly adjust the revenues that were not incorporated because we had to run this a little bit before when we finalized it, but it's not gonna, that's 500 is not gonna turn into $1 million. It may turn into 550, 600, but again, that's still, you get the picture of where we are and what we're up against.
It's not including any increase. That's level funding from last year. No increase and nothing.
That 500 is what's available to the town for all new expenses, whether it's cost of living adjustments, different supply of items if someone in the department wants. That is all we have available to us after you take off your fixed costs.
Wow.
Doesn't include Pathfinder assessment. It doesn't include any of that,
Wow.
That doesn't reflect the budget requests for
Correct.
level service.
which we'll
So
get to.
not level funding,
Yeah.
level service, but that's just, he's just showing the revenue at this point. He hasn't even gotten to the.
Right, that's what I mean. This is just revenue.
Correct, new revenue.
New revenues. And we've already eaten up all the new revenues with the additional fixed costs. So there's really not much money left to do
This is
anything
it.
else.
We're left with about 25% of our new revenue.
Wow.
And what percentage of the overall budget is that? 500,000 out of a 40-something
$43 million
million dollar
budget. Yeah,
budget?
I didn't even do the math.
Not
on
a
it.
lot. Not a big percentage.
So is there any questions before we move to the next slide? All right, you're good. All right, this then feeds into, Matt, your question about kind of like operating budget. So the key column is, you'll see the total new revenues on the left-hand side. That's the 1.9. When you go through all the municipal requests and the transfers and special assessments, the operating budget, that totals a $3 million change compared to the 1.9 that's available. So I wish I need to buy it. We need to get a laser pointer so I can point at it. Ultimately, what happens to our operating budgets with the requests as is, we are $1.1 million short. Like I said, there will be a minor fluctuation in the revenues we've already found that'll bring that, in my opinion, down to $1 million, but that is what we're up against.
Right. But then as a town, we need to figure out where we're gonna come up with $1 million.
That's my next slide. 2 slides from now. This just shows the operating budget requests, the breakdown as they've been submitted to date. This just gives you the pie chart of, and percentages of where what the composition is for the operational budget requests. Again, we'll put this online so everyone can see. I know it's probably not easy to see back there.
Doesn't really change.
Any questions on that one? All right. And then the next slide is our next steps. All right, so obviously we need to review health insurance. Most likely we need to reach out to the Insurance Advisory Committee to talk about really what we can look at for maybe plan design changes, for premium cost shifts. But again, all of that has to be negotiated with the IAC. We have to review fees. You guys had the proposal and approved it from Sue tonight. We need to do that as a town-wide thing where we review all of our fees because we are out of line on a lot of them that, again, it's not gonna be earth-shattering revenue, right? We're not gonna find $1 million, but if we find 50 grand, if we find 100 grand, it's less money we're trying to chase from our shortfall. The next one is to continue to review service delivery for efficiencies. And I always like to say, think outside the box. Every municipality I've ever worked in, we just roll over and we do the same thing year to year. We really need to look at how we're delivering service, and is there a way to offer the same service, but do we look at regionalizing, which is my next bullet point? How do we still deliver the quality product we want to, but more efficiently? Again, the next bullet point is discuss regionalization efforts for both the town and schools. Again, this is not going to be a pretty budget season for the school departments. And is there a way that we start to discuss long-term planning of regionalization? As you guys know, the big component of regionalization is that you save on administrative costs overhead, but the big one is you get reimbursed on your transportation. Bonnie, I don't know if you have the number off the top of your head, but I want to say transportation for the Palmer Public Schools is over $1 million. I think that's a fair estimate to say, right? So if we were to break that out, we still own the K through 6, but if we can back charge for the high school students, again, that's revenue that we have available for other expenses in the classroom. Same thing on the town side. Is there a way to look at how we deliver service and regionalizing similar to the animal controllers, another department that we could look at? Another one is we need to create a long-term financial forecast to utilize in decision-making. This will help when we have contract negotiations and CBAs of really outlining, hey, what do the next 5 years look like? We can throw in there what a 10% average is for health insurance and say, that's gonna cost X, Y, and Z over the course of the next 5 years. And then at the end of the day, I need to bring forward a balanced budget to you guys. So the work starts tomorrow
Or yesterday.
or yesterday.
Yeah, without even,
Tomorrow seems too late.
Any questions on this? I do think, though, there's gonna have to be a lot of hard decisions and hard discussion of the future of, really the municipal side and the town side of strategically talking about regionalizing different things and way to finding cost-saving measures. And again, because we don't wanna lose our product. We wanna offer a quality product. But how do we do that within the confines of our budget?
Right, because we certainly don't want to cut services because everybody's trying to say, what am I getting for my tax dollar right now?
Exactly.
And I think there's a lot of ways that regionalization also, it creates efficiencies, and then you can also provide a better service overall for a lot of different things.
And this isn't finalized, right? We have tons of time, and the state hasn't even finalized their numbers to the towns.
We use their preliminary projections in our revenue.
Right.
And sometimes it fluctuates, but the
Not $1
biggest
million.
the biggest outlier in this is the Chapter 70 for the school department. We're above minimum aid this year because of the change to preschool. So we did get, I think, about a $300,000, maybe it's $250,000, $300,000 difference that we normally would not get. So that's incorporated in there. The reality, though, is that's a one-time allotment to us, and then we're most likely going to go back to the minimum aid per pupil. So we can't bank on always getting that revenue, if that makes sense. It is, but the jump is not going to be there every year.
So, okay, you just answered my question. I said, so this year we're going to see that bump, and
Yep,
then
so
next.
it raises the base, will be there, but we're not going to keep getting
Get
that
it.
significant jump every year.
Okay.
Exactly.
It's kind of, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Any questions on this? Do we have a public?
Can we ask a question or no?
No, not tonight, because this is just preliminary numbers and
I'll send my-
things will change, huh?
I'll send it in an email.
Okay, perfect. Okay, next we have the fiscal 26 capital improvement plan overview.
All right, so I know I emailed this to the council over the weekend. Another thing I'm starting to slowly cross off my whiteboard is development of a 5-year capital plan. I will say to everyone that I've worked with on the capital improvement committee, this is really a starting point. I feel like this is at an elementary level right now, so it's still in development, but we'll get it where it needs to be as we move forward for fiscal years. So I just want to primarily focus on FY 26 requests right now. I guess the big thing is I don't have the department heads here to discuss the individual items with you. What I want for takeaways tonight is how do we want to proceed with whether it's going through the council for the requests or we want the budget subcommittee to hear the requests, then bring that forward as a final product to the council. So I'll go through all the items that are outlined. So we have for the Palmer Police Department, we have a call handling software at roughly $45,000. We have a radio system upgrade for $500,000. For the DPW, we have a replacement dump truck at $74,000. We have a 10-wheel dump truck at $380,000. We have sidewalk replacement / upgrades at $100,000. For Palmer Public Schools, we have the sanding and refinishing of the Palmer High School gym at $25,000. We have exterior caulking at Old Mill Pond at $250,000. We have the boiler pump drives for $57,000, and we have a the paving parking design for $36,000. And also for recreation, I put in there a placeholder for $50,000 for the Burley Park master plan. For wastewater treatment plant, we have a few projects. We have the UV project and the sludge dewatering centrifuge. You guys both voted those tonight. We have a request for a junction structure investigation at $138,000. That includes money that was previously authorized by the council. We have a request for an easement survey at $90,000, and we have a request for a pickup truck of F-350 at $62,931, and that is a little bit of an emergency. So that is, you'll see that later on in the agenda tonight. That we pull that out of the capital plan. The funding source would still stay the same, but we'll review that one later on tonight because there is urgency to replace that vehicle.
So, quick question. You have wastewater treatment broken out on the bottom because it's the enterprise fund, correct?
Correct.
And that comes out of water surplus, correct?
Correct.
But that's also
Sewer.
linked to the long-term rate increase that we defined, right?
Correct.
Those projects are on that schedule.
Yes and no. So you got to split them out. The UV and the sludge dewatering that you guys just voted tonight, we've had preliminary discussion on what that would look like. That would get added on to the EDU charge. But for the junction structure and the easement and the vehicle, that'll come out of our, essentially our surplus. So it doesn't impact the EDU charge because it's just surplus money we carried over from a prior year. So it's not adding to the bottom line, it's just taking from our reserves and funding.
Well, the junction's just to figure out what's wrong, right? And what to do with it.
Correct.
That's not to fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, how long did it take us to build $5 million reserves in the service surplus?
So we don't have 5 million, we have 1.3 right now. And our financial policies say we have to have 1.25.
Why does it say we're gonna spend 5.2? Oh, because the top two projects are gonna be
Exactly. So look at.
Are they gonna be
I don't know
loaned
I
out,
don't know
borrowed?
what
Right.
sheet
I
you
got
have,
it.
but
I got it.
there's two separate sheets. One says debt service column, the other says sewer surplus.
I got it now. Yep, I'm following. Yep.
So again, I don't have the department heads here to ask specific questions to. They're available, just as what direction do we want to go in? I guess the question is, does the council want to hear from everyone as a whole? Or do you request the budget subcommittee meet and review all these projects to present to the council as a whole?
The reason why we put together the budget subcommittee was that they would gather all the information and present it all as one packet to the council and vote on it. That it was up to the budget subcommittee to make the best decision and then review it with the council and then we could discuss it as a council. So I think that letting the budget subcommittee review it and then bring it forward to the council for vote and question would probably be the best bet, in my opinion.
I agree.
I concur.
What I would like to see, though, is, and maybe this is coming down the road, but I would like for each of those requests that you're putting forward, like a paragraph of, and some is easier than other, like if it was a vehicle, it would be, the year of the vehicle we're replacing, how many miles it has, why are we replacing it? Are we getting rid of it, are we keeping it as part of the fleet, something like that. But for each of those categories, I would like to see, with a few sentences to a paragraph of just exactly what we're budgeting, and then that to be presented as like the capital plan with the explanation, so that when the subcommittee is reviewing it, we can then, once we go through everything, that can go to the whole council so that you can then read in a concise detail of exactly what that is for, if it moves forward from the budget subcommittee to the full council. And then we don't have to rehash everything with department heads, and then if there's any questions, they can reach out to you directly, once
So
we
I
get
did,
to the
yeah,
point.
it was very, the council, a copy of all that backup documentation.
I saw it all.
Yeah, it's for every project, has a cover sheet, it's got a quote attached to it, it's got pictures if you need. So I think we have that ready to go for you.
Okay,
I
perfect.
find it hard to pull the trigger on a 10-wheel dump truck since we contract all of our
We said no.
projects.
I thought we already said no. Why is that even coming back?
We pulled it. We never officially said no on it.
Well, I just don't see a need for the DPW for a 10-wheel dump truck if we contract all our big projects.
So
We'll
let's-
discuss the
that's-
subcommittee.
right,
Right, that's all, I'm just throwing it out there, right?
But I will say too, one of the things that I would like you to figure out before we get to budget subcommittee is the zero emissions law, I guess it is, that's gonna go into effect with vehicles, model year 2026, that's gonna directly affect DPW vehicles. And so my understanding right now is zero emission vehicles do not exist for what DPW would need. It was supposed to go into effect with 2025 vehicles. It was delayed till 2026. That still could potentially create a problem if the law is not amended to move forward into future years. And I want to make sure that we have what vehicles that we actually need to be able to function as a town before that law goes into effect. So I do think that that's important to look at. And I think it's important to also have the conversation about what you brought up, if that's the road we're going down for the future, or are we doing something different? Because that will make, obviously, our decisions could be much different based on the answer to that.
No, and in the backup to that packet, it shows what the projected cost is gonna be for the next, I think, 5 years on the existing vehicle. And the numbers, it does make sense to purchase it, but we'll have a conversation through the budget subcommittee.
Okay, everybody good for capital right now? Okay. Next, we have Resolution 2025-46, which is a vote to authorize $62,931 from the sewer surplus to replace a 2001 Chevy 2500 for the wastewater treatment plant.
So this was gonna be part of that capital plan, it's how it was outlined, but the request came in to kind of expedite this for, safety purposes. So at the end of the day, we felt like it's in the best interest, as you guys can see from the images, it makes sense to replace that now. And another piece to it is that, the contractor had an available vehicle, from a prior year on the lot that, saved us, I think, $10,000. The original request, I think, was for $73,000. We could get an existing model for $62,000.
Is everybody just like looking at vehicles now? Like, why all of a sudden?
It goes back to the capital plan, right? We should have a capital plan that outlines all of our vehicles, so it spells it out where they're gonna be on replacement cycle. So we're still developing that. I don't disagree with you. It just is, it probably is, we've neglected this for a long time, and it comes due. I mean, this one, right, a very different situation. This is a
I'm
2001.
looking at it. They just woke up on Monday and said, hey, this thing looks like shit, we can't drive it.
So, well, that, and
Feces.
on Saturday morning, I did see a wastewater treatment vehicle with a plow on it. So this is not their only vehicle.
Yeah,
How many other plow vehicles do they have, and why do they need this one replaced now?
Why don't they stick the plow in the front of the Hummer?
No, there is a truck.
Here,
I saw a
here.
utility
And a
truck with a
machine
plow on it.
gun.
It says Palmer Waste Treatment. It's a newer vehicle. I'm just curious on how many plow trucks we need, and if this is why it's such a necessity at this time.
I can tell you, most of our, and that'll feed into the emissions conversation, most of our vehicles do come with a plow attachment to it, just as how we do business, and when we replace things, we always get it with the plow on it. With that being said, I think I don't want to put a number out there on how many vehicles that wastewater treatment plant has, but I do know that this one obviously did come with the plow attachment on it, that it operates, right? But it's a matter of, I mean, you see the images, it's a matter of
Oh,
time.
I'm not going to
before-
lie that vehicle in the pictures needs to be replaced.
Yep.
But the vehicle that I saw parked at a local business this weekend was a newer vehicle with a plow on it with lettering that said wastewater treatment. So if this is our only plow truck, we need it replaced now, then that's a different. But I saw one driving on the road.
Yeah.
So
We have multiple out for every storm, so it's not like it's just one that services all of the wastewater treatment plant.
no, I understand. I'm just saying the fleet. If we have a fleet that's big enough, why is it such a necessity to place this one if we already have trucks available to do the job? That's what I'm saying. That's all.
Especially with the budget the way it is. I
Right.
mean,
Exactly.
Why don't we put a plow on the electric cars?
You can't.
Who did we,
I'm just questioning. That's all.
who has the,
I'm not saying no. Obviously, there's a need.
who has the Humvee? Is it
I didn't know
Police
we had,
Water
Department.
District, or is it
Police.
wastewater?
I didn't know we had one.
Yeah, me either.
I thought
two
the
of
police
them, I
department got
think.
rid of it. I don't know where
It's
it
in
is.
town, it's in town.
DPW. I think it's DPW.
It's at DPW? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they gave it to somebody, so it must be wastewater then.
Or DPW, right.
Someone
Yeah,
under the
highway,
DPW umbrella,
yeah.
yeah.
How many vehicles do they have?
I'd have to pull the list, honestly.
I
It's,
think they should come and make a pitch to us.
Is this something that has to get done tonight?
we've made it this far in the season without it. There's no more snow in the forecast, I heard.
I'm just asking.
Tomorrow, but they're not getting a new truck by tomorrow.
No, the reality is why I expedite this one is because I do believe in it needs to be replaced, right? And if we have an available opportunity, if it's gonna be replaced, I'd rather replace it at $10,000 cheaper than wait till July 1st and replace it with a newer model for $73,000. So life will go on if you vote no on this, but if it comes back to the table, it's probably gonna be a higher dollar amount. It's not gonna change the funding source. It'll still be sewer surplus.
I'm not all about losing money. I'm just questioning the fact. That's all.
No, it's a fair statement. But that's the thing, right? This is on the capital plan. We're pulling it off to request it in advance rather than wait till July for the funding to be approved and available.
And so this plows the roads, or just town property?
This town property, and I can't think, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but
says,
what are the stations called? The substation, yeah, pump stations. Yeah, it cleans out the pump stations.
So it kind of feels like almost like a access, right? This isn't making sure that people can get to work or to the hospital, or this is just,
This is a frontline vehicle, I would say. I mean, as far as, I mean, this is staff getting from one pump station to another, going out and doing inspections, emergency calls, it says sewer blockages, moving equipment.
But if it's now or July and we have to pay more in July, then I'd say we do it now. Why wait?
It's a 2001 Chevy with 110,000
Exactly.
miles on it.
Exactly.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of. Where's that? Hold on, the resolution. Authorize $62,931 for sewer surplus to purchase a 2025 Ford F-350. Are we trading it in? Are we auctioning it? What are we doing with that vehicle?
We'll probably auction it. I don't believe it was part of a trade-in
Okay,
outline.
I'll make that motion.
second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed.
4-2. Motion carries.
I just want to, as clarification, I'm looking at this vendor quote from OSD, and it's probably just an error on their end, but it does say Palmer Water Department.
Yeah, they probably just copied a prior
Okay.
quote and sent it to them.
Okay. Just making sure.
Yeah, you're good.
Wastewater.
Does it say the address on it?
No. They got it says 2024 Ford 350.
Yeah, they probably just copied a quote that they sent out previously.
Okay.
What is it, 2024?
Correct.
Hold on, this says 2020. No, so.
2024. What's in
yeah,
the agenda? What's in
The authorization just says, so it's a 2024 vehicle, not a 2025 vehicle.
Okay.
So I amend my motion.
Yeah, it says new 2025 Ford F-350 4x4.
In the quote, it says 2024.
On the letter to the town council from the DPW says request for a 2025 Ford F-350.
Exactly, but then it, correct.
quote,
And then
yeah.
the quote says 2024.
We probably want
It's
to.
2024, because that was the price point difference. The 2025 was at the $73,000 mark. They said that they had this one available, so probably what happened is the memo didn't get adjusted to match what the price quote was.
It's actually at the bottom. It says this truck is being purchased through OSD state contract. We also have saved $8,000 of going with a new 24 model instead of a 2025.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay. I do think, though, that it's really important when we get this, we do the undercarriage coating. Also, I mean, all that rust, I mean, I don't know how often we're washing vehicles, but we need to start doing that. We need to start maintaining what we have.
Yep.
And the undercarriage coating should just be an automatic now when we get vehicles. Should just be every single time.
Very good.
Good thing the council has to say that.
That's why they keep us here. All right, I'm just going to jump to Resolution 2025-48, which is a vote to approve the draft language for an additional liquor license.
We had a request come in for an additional license in the Pride Plaza where Walgreens is, the Subway. So they're looking for us to approve a license for a vacant storefront.
Rumor has it we already did. I could have sworn we already approved that.
Not for this location.
Now, you may have approved, I think there's a lot behind the scenes of this. I think Pride may have been approved at one point, which probably was tied to that parcel. They did not keep the license. The license then fell out of their hands and was granted to someone else. So there's no license right now. Correct, Marlene, there's no license tied to that property right now. There was at one point, because Pride did have one. For whatever reason, it lapsed. It got taken by someone else, and now we don't have any available.
I could have sworn the last request that we got, right? It was the same request that we requested for Joe Luke's, right, on Main Street? And Jane Alden's, and I thought there was a property, a storefront that was supposedly going in at that plaza.
The Old Friendlies. The Old Friendlies was another one that we had on the list.
And
We
the,
didn't do that one because that was
Yes.
like a blanket.
Oh, that's
There
right.
was no-
We did,
Oh.
we declined that one because it didn't, we were just, it is an open storefront, there was no
Specific.
store.
Right.
It was just a.
Right, it wasn't approved, yeah.
Property owner just
Right.
wanted one.
Yep.
And we said no.
Correct, I do remember that. I know we talked about this.
I had to think
Yes.
about it.
okay. So we have a motion to approve resolution 2025 for a additional liquor license for 1043 Thorndike Street.
And this is just a one extra, right, we're going to the state for, on this request?
Yep.
It'll be added to the 5 other we still have pending.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Usually they turn faster than that, don't they?
No, not really.
Well, I make a motion then.
You want to
Second.
serve liquor at the Pride?
No, this is for a
this is-
storefront.
This is
I'm trying to,
no,
or
it's a store.
Subway,
called-
get a sandwich and a booze?
called Palmer Fine
Yes.
Wine and Liquors, located at 1043 Thorndike Street.
Where's that?
Right next to Walgreens in the plaza.
The old Cricket store, I believe. Was it Cricket
Next to
store?
Palmer Dental in the corner.
It's not open then, right?
Correct. It's a vacant storefront. This would go in there.
Walking distance.
There you go.
Did you make a motion?
I
made the motion.
Somebody did.
I second.
Yeah, made it, just seconded.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. Ambulance service update. And let's start with the update.
Yeah, so quickly, I just want to review everything with the council and the audience to just give the where we were in October and where we are right now. So as Bob mentioned previously, the notification to the town manager's office came in on October 24th. We were notified by Palmer Ambulance that they would no longer to be able to service medical service emergencies to the town of Palmer as of October 31st. Again, that's where the 7-day notice came from. So what I did for an immediate response is I reached out to both Palmer Fire because they had just added on BLS service, I think maybe about 30 days before that date. So they were live for about a month. And also the Palmer Police Department to really see what could Palmer Fire do to pick up what was going to be lost by Palmer Ambulance. So we went in right away. As of that date on November 1st, we had 24/7 coverage at a BLS level. Again, doesn't replace what Palmer Ambulance had, but we had BLS coverage in place 24/7 as of November 1st. 2 weeks after that, I started having conversations with 3 different ALS service providers that are kind of locally in the area. They have different oversight on a few different towns, but they're in our local area, and started the conversation of saying, hey, Palmer's in a need for ALS coverage. What can you provide? That conversation still with all of those vendors has been ongoing to up yesterday with the where we are, where the status is. They submitted quotes to me. One of the big problems, though, is I know a lot of people in the public think like this should happen like this, right? Finding a home that they're able to service, because the difference between a BLS and an ALS is some of the medicines that are carried on a ALS truck, you actually have to plug in. It's not like you can keep the truck floating around all day. So they need to find a permanent housing place within Palmer to make ALS service work. Okay, so finding that location takes time. Some of them still have not even found one to go on a lease agreement for, but that is why the length of this has taken where it is today. So in that process of talking through initial quotes, the initial price range I received was anywhere from $150 from one vendor all the way up to $320,000 per year for another. As you guys saw tonight, right? Anything we add on now, because this came at a $0 cost to us from Palmer Ambulance, is right off that $500,000 that's available. That just comes right off the top, because this is a service we have to provide. Now, with that being said, Palmer Fire had kept them in the loop all along. They met with me when I was meeting with a couple of these different vendors, and they now have come forward with a proposal that they think they can take over the ALS operation for the town as of, I believe, August or September 1st. So I'll save that for Bill, the Chief Burnett. But reality is that's where we are today. I'll be happy to answer any questions on that. but we did hit a time period where the vendors I was working with kind of were struggling to find a location within town that met their operational needs to set up shop. So that's why this has stalled for so long. And I don't want to have someone come to the agreement of, yeah, we're available in, and again, I'm just using this example, we're available in Wilbraham and we'll get there when we can. We already have that existing. We have mutual aid agreements where that service we're already in agreement for, that's what we're calling right now if there is ALS need.
I believe Ludlow.
Yeah, all of them. Granby. We have local agreements depending on where the accident is in Palmer to call for backup. So I just felt like signing an agreement with someone that said, hey, we may not be within Palmer, we may be on the outskirts. It's no different than offering mutual aid because it already exists in town. So with that being said, what I'd like to have is the Palmer Fire come up to discuss their proposal with the council to see if this is the direction that the council feels we should go in. There is a little difference because the 3 vendors I worked with outside of Palmer Fire cannot come in and offer ALS service right away for us. There is a little bit of a gap. If we go with Palmer Fire, we would be having a gap to provide that service. But also, too, there's other providers in town that maybe want to work with us to cover a time period until Palmer Fire is fully up and running on ALS service. Similar to as it would be if we were using mutual aid. So there's not any more questions on that and the process. I'll have Palmer Fire come up and review their proposal.
Just to be clear, though, in the conversations that you were having with outside vendors, while there was discussions regarding the logistics of where to house an ambulance, to the point where you started to where you are today, those concerns or those issues were addressed in some way as you got closer or further away from the beginning conversations to now, correct?
Correct.
So
Yeah,
I just,
so all 3.
because you're making it sound like there's an issue with a private company being able to house an ambulance. That's not necessarily an issue.
We closed that gap.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because you're,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So there are 3 other providers outside of Palmer Fire can come in with probably a 2-week notice to get staffing levels up and running and provide 24/7 ALS coverage if that's the direction we want to go in. But I wanted to bring Palmer Fire here to discuss what their plan would be and what it would look like to roll out ALS coverage to the town.
Okay.
Feels good.
Good evening.
Do you guys want to sit?
Yeah, easier if we can.
Gabrielle, you're good if you want to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Pull up a chair.
Actually, I'm gonna move.
Yeah, take the comfy chair.
All right.
What is yours?
You all have the packet that you got from
Yep.
Brad, right? So,
Yep.
We propose a 3-year contract with the town paying $132,000 on FY '26, and then $120,000 on FY '27, and then $110,000 on FY '28. Starting FY '26, we would upgrade our staffing. So we pretty much add paramedic to each group. There's 4 groups of firefighters right now that we cover 24/7. So we're gonna add a paramedic to each group. So that will help us get us to the ALS level. If Fitz, you wanna go over the,
Sure.
go over the ALS, how long it'll take us to get to the ALS level?
Yeah. So obviously right now we're at the BLS level. We're actively taking steps to go ALS level. So one of the first steps is every ambulance service in Massachusetts has to be affiliated with a hospital. For example, we're affiliated with Link Hospital of Bay State. So to work as an EMS service, we actually work under a doctor's license, which would be Dr. Knowles from Bay State. Dr. Knowles and Melissa constantly have reviewed our ALS policies. They made the revisions, drafted them. I just met with Melissa last week, and everything's pretty much going along the lines of that being all set and obtaining our ALS affiliation. So that's not having an ALS license, that's just being affiliated under a hospital to proceed for an advanced life support service. So we're working on that. Like I wasn't projecting that to be done till March, actually later May, but it should be happening hopefully the next month. Right now we have an outdated service zone plan. So under each community there needs to be a service zone plan that basically says what is the primary ambulance throughout the town, what's the backup services, and obviously the one we have right now is very outdated. So that needs to be updated. It's quite a bit of back and forth going through the states of revising and so on. So that'd be our next step, is to revise the service zone plan. Later on in the mid-spring, we'd start posting for the positions for 4 full-time medics. By then receive our ALS affiliation agreement with Bay State. Going further in the early summertime, hopefully by then have the new service zone plan throughout the town of Palmer, having Palmer Fire hopefully as the primary service throughout the town. We'd start doing interviews with the full-time medics, and then as we get into the summertime, we start doing the physicals for full-time medics, orientations and training. And like I said, just because you have an EMT card or a paramedic card in your wallet doesn't mean you just go out and start practicing. You have to obtain what's called an authorization to practice, and that's obtained under Bay State Hospital. So during that early month of July, if the paramedics that we do hire don't have prior authorization, so say, I'll use an example, we picked up a medic from Wilbraham or Munson, someone who has like a Bay State affiliation. If we were to hire someone that's not affiliated with Bay State prior, we'd have to have them do a 30-call upgrade to obtain that authorization to practice. So again, it all depends on who we would hire. Some might already have that authorization to practice. We're hoping that we would hire some seasoned paramedics, so it basically streamline the process and go from there. And then next would be just purchasing a cardiac monitor and other advanced life support equipment like medications, airway equipment, IV pumps, and so on. And we'd start converting a former Chiefs vehicle, Tahoe, into what we call an ALS quick response vehicle. So it would have everything a paramedic needs to do to operate besides pretty much a stretcher. So we'd have our 2 BLS ambulances and that ALS fly car as well. So we'd be able to basically staff 2 ambulances and also have this ALS quick response vehicle to provide to the community. Going later in the summer, we would start applying for our license. We also have to update our controlled license, controlled license registration for our narcotics. We project a delay with the DPH due to summer schedules in the offices during the summer. Hopefully by late August, have delivery of the cardiac monitor and our ALS equipment. And again, it kind of go back and forth between DPH and OEMS and us. It's basically be like a 1 to 2 month turnaround when OEMS is reviewing our license, making recommended changes, and then hopefully early fall having OEMS come out, do an inspection, and we can go from there and start our advanced life support.
So realistically, you're saying November?
Aiming for November, if not sooner. Like I said, even just our ALS affiliation agreement, just the SOPs, I projected that till May, but it looks like it's going to happen hopefully in the next month. So.
Okay.
So this is worst case scenario.
Yes. Yep.
And best case, what would you estimate for a timeline?
Again, it's just, I would hope by August, but it all depends on, we're talking about summer schedules and offices in Boston you're working with too. So with basically talking with OEMS and DPH and set up those inspections and reviews of what we have for our license.
So with the $132,000 that you mentioned, would that be effective when you become a ALS department? Or are you looking at that on July 1st when you're for the BLS?
We're looking at it for July 1st.
So, quick question. I know that we have a lot of paramedics already being staffed on multiple departments in town, right? Not saying that they're all in Palmer or on Palmer Fire, but we have paramedics on the rosters in different villages, right? Why can't you put together a quick response vehicle at this time and have ALS coverage just in quick response?
Because they don't have the license.
Well, yeah, I mean, besides that. Like, why can't we fast track just the quick response vehicle?
So, I mean, they'd have to be our employees.
Yeah, so when we submit our application to the state, we have to have a roster saying these are the paramedics, they're in good standing, they've been trained by Palmer Fire, they have authorization to practice through Bay State, and OEMS wants to see that list.
Right, I get it. But you have, currently on Palmer Fire, you have medics, don't you?
Yes, yep.
Current, 2, right? Right. But I'm just saying is like, we can start the process, maybe not full-time, 24/7 ALS, but we can start getting ALS coverage, can't we? With a fly vehicle?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could, this is 24/7 coverage, but if we can come sooner than later with even 8 hours, 10 hours. like,
Correct, that's all I'm saying, yeah.
We would go for that, yeah.
Right, right. And I'm not saying cut corners, I'm just saying that we have the staff.
As soon as we could do it, we would do it.
Correct, yeah.
But it's about the licensing aspect.
That
That's
and
what.
getting, You know, getting
Quick
equipment and stuff
question.
like that. and
Right.
funding.
If I was following Mr. Havelis right, the old ambulance was getting deductions or the trips from the wing to maybe the better hospitals. Is that why their revenue went down and they couldn't make it? And would your company or the fire department, they wouldn't be involved in transferring?
No, we wouldn't.
No, we'd be
Whoever they're
solely just
using.
911
We're
service.
basing our
Yeah.
budget on 1,600 calls a year.
Yeah.
right now.
So I think Carl's question is, how are you gonna make it profitable? To sustain?
Currently, the numbers that we have, we are over the break-even point, so.
That would be charging a patient or a
Yeah.
run?
Yes, yep.
I look at it as we're hiring a subcontractor, right? So if they break, if their financials are their financials.
But I disagree because their customers are also our taxpayers.
Well, I'm
So
a taxpayer.
yeah, but not a Palmer District taxpayer.
That was
but
my
I'm gonna
next-
get
right.
charged.
So I think what disclaimer, municipal finance, my lane, service level, your lane. And I think that you guys have done an exceptional job at providing service to the community. And I thank you guys so much for stepping up. As many of you may or may not know, my sister's also an EMT for you guys and an emergency room nurse. So I know, what goes into that side of things, but the finance side is just kind of where what I do every single day. And so I think what the concern is that if their revenues from the ambulance service don't break even, then where are they going to look to cover that shortfall? And so if we as the town, which is 132,000 spread across however many tax bills we issue, and whatever impact to the rate that will be, that's one thing. But if there's a gap in revenue, where do you guys make up for that gap? And do you guys end up going and spreading the burden onto a much smaller part of the tax base, which is District 1 ratepayers, which there's members of the council, the town manager, people in the audience, Bonnie, Bob. So I guess that's just where I want to be extremely cognizant of the impact to those bills as well, potentially. So that's where I think from your comment of them being like a subcontractor, they're still the residents that will have input to us, and
So
their tax bills.
what's the proposal then?
I guess the question really is, what funding source, let's say this doesn't go as well you guys anticipated, right? And your revenues come in $100,000 short, where do you go to cover that deficit?
Right. So currently, it would be our taxpayers. But, down the road, if we could look into working with the other districts, as time goes on, and that would be an option too.
I'm guessing you guys are gonna treat this as an enterprise fund, right? To try to keep it separate from the regular taxpayer money
Yeah.
and try to self-fund it on its own?
I do want to mention that it was not set up as an enterprise
Currently,
fund.
it's
That's
set
why I'm
up-
asking.
Currently, it's set up like our water district is set up, where they rely on the receipts for the budget.
Correct, an enterprise fund.
It's not an
It's not.
enterprise fund.
It's
no.
not.
It's not?
From
Well,
what
they're
I
funding the water
reviewed,
department with water receipts, which is an enterprise fund, isn't it correct?
Oh, maybe the water department
Well,
is,
that's what he
but-
says. He's setting it up like their water
That's what I
department.
was told by our accountant.
well,
Steve.
I looked at the warrant, and the warrant language did not establish it as an enterprise fund. It is, when it's reported to the state, it's reported as a local receipt, kind of like how we report sewer. our sewer is technically not an enterprise fund. We call it an enterprise fund because that's
Got it.
the easy language to use. But it's basically a fee-based service. So that is just another technicality, is that if you do want to establish it as a true enterprise fund, there's another, there's language that can support that.
So are we recommending that that's what they do?
No, we're not telling them what to do. I'm just asking because, like Jessica just brought up, the District 1 customers are going to be funding, because they fund their fire department, they're paying the taxes. And right now, Bondsville and Three Rivers are not giving any money to Palmer to cover
I understand
their
that. I
villages. Yeah.
understand
No,
that.
no,
Are we
I know.
grilling them or are we helping them? What are we doing here?
We're asking. I'm just asking.
No, we're not asking. I don't feel like we're asking. I feel like we're
No, I understand.
attacking. So are we suggesting that they set it up as an enterprise fund? So we separate that
I think the
issue?
question was, if they didn't have ample money coming in from ambulance runs,
Yeah, no, I understand
what,
that.
how would they be covering the shortfall? And the answer was through the taxpayers in Fire District Number 1 was the answer.
Yeah.
So that's what the answer is right now. Correct?
Right.
Okay.
Without reaching out
But we can.
and working
you know,
with the other
this-
districts.
The short amount of time we had to put this together, moving forward down the road, you know, we could work with the other districts on coming up with something that's possible. So
Which is
that's the
ideally
thought
what should
process.
happen.
It just,
I 100% agree.
time frame is very short and quick, so.
Yeah, and I absolutely, like I said, I think everything that you guys have done, put the work in, is commendable. And I can't thank you guys enough for stepping up and taking this over. But, you know, to both of your points, I do think that this is an excellent opportunity. Having 3 fire departments in one town is not the best practice. It's not the norm. It is not what happens. As I work with all communities across the state, we don't see this happening. So I think it is in the best interest of the entire town of Palmer to consider having one unified fire department. And then as you guys see, Munson, Wilbraham, Belchertown, Ware, all of our neighboring communities have municipal run ambulance service. So I think it is absolutely possible for it to be possible for Palmer as well. But I do think it's would behoove all of the fire departments to work together to become one fire department.
I agree.
I don't think that's gonna happen this year.
No,
So,
it's been this way for what, 100 and something years?
I guess that's the one thing I will note that is a little bit different about this proposal than the other 3 I have, right? Is that at the end of the day, the outside companies, they own that shortfall. It's not like they're going back to a taxpayer, whether they're in the Palmer Fire District or they're asking the town for more money. They may walk from the contract and say, hey, this is a loser for us, we're gonna walk. But reality is, if they're short above what we pay them, that's on the company, not on anyone
for that contract year,
for whatever the commitment is that they sign off for.
yeah, then they're gonna get you. Or they're gonna raise
Well,
the
they
rates.
wouldn't, because it's locked in.
For that contract.
For that contract, yeah, that's fair, yeah.
Somebody's gonna eat it. It's not gonna be them for long.
But I think the other, what the decision of the council is right now is that we're going to support a local service that is a very good quality service, that won't necessarily be looking for profits. Or if we're going for a privately run corporation that is, looking for profits, there's going to be a different, potentially a different level of service to our community. But also, this is kind of the one chance for us to support the Palmer Fire Department. And if we go down the private route, then that's
it.
It's kind of it.
That's it.
So I think, we're put in a tough spot. We're all around put in a very tough spot. And I wish that, you guys had more time to fully develop all of this, but we are playing the cards that we are dealt right now. And that is just part of
So
our.
what's the ask tonight?
There's no necessary ask. I'm looking for direction on the board of, if this is if this is something that you want me to continue to pursue with Palmer Ambulance, I guess. It's not a final decision.
Are you asking for a vote?
Palmer Fire.
Palmer Fire, yeah, sorry. Palmer Fire. I'm not looking for a vote. I just want all of our questions tonight to be answered to satisfactory level.
You have my support, because I don't want to pay an outside service to come in, and
Correct. You guys are already doing the job, and why cut you off at the knees?
we already have mutual aid right now.
Yep.
We're already doing our intercepts.
We have mutual aid agreements with all our surrounding towns, and so far it's been working out very well.
I do think, though, there's a balance to have here, right? If this is the direction the board wants to, or I should say board, the council wants to go in, I do understand everyone's concerns on the council, that I think if we came up with some kind of language that gave us a provision that either party has, if we start this going down this direction, right, and it's a big time loser for us, each side has a provision that we can term the contract with a 6-month notice, a 9-month notice. That way, if it is not coming to suitable numbers, we have an out to then change course, and we're not stuck with a 3-year
You
agreement.
good with that?
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
One thing though that we haven't really talked about is that we do not control the districts, right? We know that. And there has always been a stigma where the town does not fund the districts. The districts are funded through taxpayer dollars, right? Do we have a problem, or is there an issue with us funding one district? Because that opens up a precedence where then we could possibly end up funding other districts.
I get-
I mean, we're paying for a service, I get it.
Yep, that's exactly what I was gonna
But
say.
you get where I'm going though?
I do, but no one else is equipped to offer the service right now.
Understood. Right.
What
I
other
just don't want to open
what other
Pandora's
service
box.
would another district come and ask for?
Well, here's the issue, right? Say, Bondsville tomorrow says, well, we want to start an ambulance service too. We want to jump in.
That's where the service zone plan comes into play.
Got it. I understand. Right. But I'm just saying that, then we have 3 districts, 3 fire departments, and now 3 ambulance services in town.
That's-
It gets wild.
Yeah,
It
look
gets
at
all
feasibility.
crazy. Right. Right. I get it. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it can happen.
It probably will.
Right. So.
I also, going back to like the financing side, and again, how you guys weren't, the timing of everything has not been favorable, but there's been no appropriation from the district. So there's basically been from your voters, there's been no essentially like approval to provide the service at this level. So I just also think that is something that to be cognizant of. And I know how the meetings work, the annual meetings, and about what it's like to get people to turn out to vote. But I just think that is something else to be cognizant of, is that you're also going to have to go to the voters and say, we're increasing our expenditures, even if you have a separate revenue source for it. We are increasing our expenditures and our service level to a level that you may not had previously anticipated. So I think just for right now, that service is being provided without prior authorization from the voters.
Well, our contract, if we enter a contract, it'll be for fiscal '26. They will go to town meeting before
Right.
that. They'll have an
They have it
approved
approved,
budget. And then if it doesn't happen at their annual meeting,
Then we're
then
back to-
then we would have to take other
Go back to one
steps
of the
at
three
that
providers.
point in time, right? So, I mean, we're not gonna enter into anything with them
Prior
until,
to,
right?
yeah.
It would be contingent on them getting funding
Approval from-
approval at their annual town meeting.
Correct.
Or district meeting. I
But
would,
sorry to jump in.
No,
there.
you're fine.
Just to confirm, the price proposal you guys put forward right now, there's not a request from District 1 to offset or use any money to fund this program. So I think just wanted that to be known. Like right now, how this stands, that's not the request that they're gonna have to go for additional money to cover this upfront cost. That's worst case scenario.
no, they are gonna have to put a budget together.
Correct.
And town meeting, district meeting will have to approve that operating budget that will then be offset with
With
the revenue
receipts.
source,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with us.
No, but what Jessica's trying to say is if the district meeting did not approve
Oh, no,
that
I
budget,
understand that.
then we would have to regroup and
No,
come
I
up with
understand
a, yeah.
that, but we have nothing to do with that, other than it has to be approved.
No, but to Jessica's point, and I mean, I think it's a valid point, and it isn't fair that, which if, you know, if it works with the revenues that you collect and you're fully operational, it covers all your expenses, that's the best case scenario, because then no group of people is paying for the cost. If it gets to the point where that doesn't happen, and the budget needs to be supplemented by the District 1 taxpayers, then that really isn't fair. I do think that there needs to be, because again, the whole town will be using the service, and only, and I don't know how many people live in District 1 that are taxpayers, but, you know, again, small group benefit for the entire community. So I do think it's important that you, Brad, start this dialogue with, and I know it's been difficult historically for the districts to come together and have these conversations, but I think it is in the best interest of us as a community to have those conversations happen, and sooner rather than later, so that we can all get on the same page. And I think that doesn't have to be anything to do with the fire department. It has to do with ambulance service at this moment. I think the fire department is a bigger discussion to have, but we have this issue right now. It's the cards that have been dealt to the community. It's about moving forward, right? So the past is the past. This is where we are. We need to do what we can to make this work, and we need to move forward. And to do that, so that if there is a cost, the entire town needs to be involved. So that's what I would like to see. I also would like to take you up on the discussion with your accountant on the issue we talked last time we met, because I do think that it's important for us to have that conversation. So if maybe we can do that in the next week or so.
Okay.
Okay, just to help you out a little,
Yeah,
okay?
no problem.
Okay.
I
So,
think your goal is 0 impact to the district,
Right,
correct?
yep.
the issue becomes, unfortunately,
If,
that there is a lot of unknowns as to what they're gonna face down the road, and hopefully it all works out. We just need to be prepared if it doesn't, what our plan is, because for me, as a counselor, I certainly don't wanna be in the situation that we're in now in 6 months, 8 months, a
Right.
year. That, I wanna visit this once, fix this once, and we all move forward, and then we can worry about something else. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and the other districts, I think if I was following you, are gonna have to chip in on this too.
Well, right now, no, there's no discussion on the floor with that. I'm saying that.
Just don't go there.
Well, no, I do want to go there, and I think that that's going to be something that Brad's going to have to try to,
They
Talk
have
about.
to.
Well, I mean, if you look at it from the 132,000 that we're contributing off year one, right? That's already coming from every taxpayer. So that to me is our initial, that's from the town, here you go. The difference should be covered by the districts across the board. So we can talk with them on coming up with some funding mechanism, like, we'll have to talk through that. But I do think at the end of the day, if we consolidate, all this cost would go away. There'd be $0 to the taxpayer.
The majority of our calls obviously come from Palmer, and then Three Rivers would be next, and then it's very little to Bondsville and Thorndike, because Thorndike's a
Fix
very
ourselves.
small population.
We just cut it off.
but again,
Has
it's
the
a,
Narcan gone down, like the calls for that? I don't see people in the streets anymore. I was just wondering.
We've only been
going
doing it
away
for
a little
three
bit?
months, so I don't know if it's gone down or it's
Yeah.
stayed the same.
And just another, getting back to the financing
Seasonal.
conversation, another source of revenue, as somebody mentioned, Thorndike, is that you can just also help bring some more revenue in by assessing Thorndike, as they are, I don't know what they are, but they're
We
yours.
could discuss with them assessment.
okay, so at this point in time, I don't think Brad needs a vote, but I think Brad's looking just that you would like him to continue the discussion to the point of getting a contract entered with the district or the Palmer Fire, and
Yeah, go ahead.
And I would just say, I would like to see, before you sign the contract, I would like to just see a copy of the draft contract, just to make sure that it covers any concerns that any of us may have. But also, I'd like to get this moving as opposed to stalling, so that they can then continue with the steps they have to take.
Also, we plan on including monthly reports, so you know what the service is doing, what's being provided for, our taxpayers, so you'll be well educated on that.
Appreciate that. Transparency is good.
Anything else from the council? You need anything else?
I'm good.
Okay, thanks for coming in, thanks for
Yep,
sitting
thank
through
you
the whole
for having us.
meeting.
Thank
and,
you.
I'll be in
Gentlemen.
touch with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. We have subcommittee reports. As Brad said, the budget subcommittee did meet last week. We went over the revenues, which he kind of presented to you tonight. And then I expect we will not meet again till sometime in March, when he has an actual budget together. Greg? Anybody else have subcommittee meetings? I don't think so. Okay. Town managers report.
So this will be pretty quick tonight. As Bonnie had mentioned, just a reminder, after you have 24 hours after a storm to clean up your property and your walkway. Reality is, we do not have a good enforcement mechanism right now. That needs to be discussed through various channels to ensure that we have compliance. Like everything else, it's a town ordinance, but reality is, there's not a lot of backup on it, and we need to figure out how do we enforce this so people are held accountable for not taking care of their properties.
Is that, it wouldn't be through code enforcement?
I thought it was through code enforcement. I was just gonna say, now that Bill has moved up to our full-time inspector,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Our building inspector,
Yep.
he's not doing as much of the code enforcement stuff, right? Or he is as much as he can, but he's not focused,
That's exactly it.
obviously.
It's as much as he
Right.
can, and that's exactly it. And now we've added on another part-time local, so we have to just discuss how we distribute that and who really is the person behind the scenes that'll go after enforcement on that.
Because we originally brought Bill on for code enforcement.
Yep.
Yes.
But there's a lot of codes to enforce.
No,
So-
I understood, yeah.
Yep.
But
Yep.
who writes the tickets for, is it the PD that writes the tickets, or is it the zoning official that writes the tickets?
Good question. I gotta follow up on that.
Okay, that would be great.
I thought Bill actually had the permission to do it.
He does to an extent. I just don't know if that includes this specific case.
Ordinances, I mean.
Correct.
Got it.
Okay.
Can't build.
Mine's always done first on Main Street.
Anything else?
Yes, we just notified the council, we had two longstanding employees who really worked as subcontractors for us. They were the sealers of weights and measures, both have retired from the practice. So we're now scrambling to look at what were our options for calendar year 25, because that's when inspections run. I signed an agreement with the state based on our size of our municipality. The state offers this program, right, because a lot of small towns are in the same scramble of, we don't have anyone local who can offer this. So I just want to notify you that I've signed with the state an agreement that will be now part of the budget, but we also will adjust the revenue so it's a net balance of zero cost to us. And then
Would this have been one of those shared services that you could have reached out to a local?
you could have, but it wouldn't have changed anything. It would have been, it wouldn't have changed our process on anything. So in my mind, this made sense just to go with the state, because a lot like everything else, right? I've talked about a couple of regional agreements. Palmer is usually the lead agency on them. And with being the lead agency, you have to take on the headaches.
Understood.
So this is just another thing that the state could take care of, and we just pay them a direct
A
flat fee.
lot of communities use the state.
No, that's fine. I was just
No,
curious, yeah.
Because the equipment, that's the one big thing
It's
is
the
the
cost
equipment.
of the buying the equipment.
Exactly.
yeah.
Because I thought we didn't even pay them, right? They got paid through fees.
They do. It'll still maintain the same, but reality is they provided their own equipment. So if the town is to bring on someone, we have to buy the equipment up front. Just didn't make financial sense to do
Understood.
any other way.
Got it.
On February 14th, we have our Building Bridges Luncheon at AMVET's Post from 12 to 1. On the end of February, dog licenses are due. On 3/12, our 2025 motor vehicle excise tax is due. And just a reminder, as Sue had mentioned, please return your annual census ASAP. The only other one I want to note is that we had 88 applications for abatements. and that is right in the norm of what we've received. So I know there's been a lot of communication on the tax bills, people unhappy. We had 88, which is right in the average ballpark of what we receive on an annual basis. That's all I got.
Any questions for Brad on his report? Miscellaneous correspondence, anyone? Counselors Roundtable, anyone? Okay, we are going to adjourn from our formal session. We're going to enter executive session. We will not return to open session. We're going to go into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Number 3, which is to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. I so declare. This is for union negotiations with Palmer Police, NEPBA Local 071, Palmer Police Dispatch, UFCW Local 1459, the DPW Administrative Unit, UPSEU Local 424M. Do a motion to go into executive session. Motion by Matt, second by Carl. Roll call vote. Matt?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Chris? Jess?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Good night.